You know, another thing, and I just want to, one of the main complaints, how many people have seen Survivor? Okay. All right. A lot of people complain about, oh, well, there's all this humor and blah, blah, blah. And my response is always like, this is a movie from the same guy who interrupted arguably the biggest zombie epic to have an impromptu pie fight. Is it such a fucking shock? You know? And that's you, because George puts himself into his movies, and for when we talk about it even on the commentary, zombies are the coyote.
Yeah.
It's all Looney Tunes, and zombies are the coyote, yeah. He has a book that he has, at least you told me that I've never seen the thing, that you think of inventive ways to kill these fuckers. How many more do you have?
Well, I don't know. You know, now that I can use computer effects. You know, sort of the world is wide open all of a sudden. I used to have to rely on Savini or Nicotero or one of those guys to pull it off. Now it's sort of you can do anything you want. Like there's a couple of gags in Survival that were completely reliant on being able to use a computer. There's a fire extinguisher gag and a flare gun gag, and so it's fun.
And half the fun is seeing how we offs them, right? Like how are they going to die next?
Yeah. Well, it's fun to see them get damaged. It's like, you know, it's fun to see the coyote get damaged, right, in the coyote cartoons. So it's fun to see zombies get damaged.
We're going to open it up because I know you have a very long line of people waiting to sign. So we're going to open it up for questions, and I'm going to point them out and speak as loud as you can so I can hear it, maybe repeat it, or we're going to go right here first.
I met you yesterday.
Yeah.
How you doing? First of all, thank you for all the memorable movies. It really made a huge impact on filmmaking. And I guess one thing, I don't know if it's going to spoil anything if anyone hasn't seen Dawn of the Dead. But I heard
they shouldn't be in this room if they haven't seen Dawn of the Dead.
I heard that you originally had a different ending for Peter. I don't want to give it away too much, but I don't know if there was a certain reason why you changed it. And I really liked the ending, how it turned out. I really enjoyed it, but I was curious if it was...
Yeah, well, in the end, you know, again, it was running in my mind when we were shooting Dawn of the Dead. The question is about I had a much darker ending originally when I wrote the script. And I think I realized while we were shooting the film, the only reason I made it dark was because Night had a dark ending.
Yes.
And I was sort of aware that this was supposed to be not a sequel directly, but a follow-up to that film. So when I was writing the script, I said, okay, everybody has to die. That's just, you know. And when we were shooting it, I fell in love with the characters. And I said, I don't have to kill these people. And I realized that the most important thing to me was that the phenomenon didn't end. You know, it's always disappointing to me. The reason to make a horror film is to sort of upset the apple cart, upset the rules, upset the world. And yet, in most traditional horror films, they set the apple cart back up again in the end. And I realized, well, I could just I don't have to straighten the world out. I could still save these couple of people. And we really did decide during production to do it that way. We actually shot footage of Fran. She was going to kill herself in the chopper blades. And Peter was going to shoot himself. There's that scene with the Derringer. And initially in the script, he does shoot himself. And we just decided, who needs it?
Plus you got that kick-ass hero theme to play as soon as you decide to say, screw it. Right there.
You know, it's funny, questions about Night Riders and whether it was a metaphor for me and my career. And to some extent it was. I mean, I don't consider myself as noble or as egalitarian as Billy, but it was to some extent that. And that line did come from my Hollywood sort of experiences. So I've only worked out there. I did 2 films for Orion. Creepshow was financed independently, and Warner Brothers picked it up on a negative pickup. Land of the Dead was also an independent producer that made the deal with us, and then Universal came in after the fact, so I wasn't really making the film for the studio. So I just did the 2 films, Dark Half and Monkey Shines, for Orion, and had a terrible time. I don't know if any of you have heard some of those stories, but it's just not my...
You don't tell him what to do. He doesn't respond well to that. Right there in the blue, the girl.
How did you feel about the European releases going today? The soundtrack is so different.
Yeah. Well, you know, Dario Argento came in with the first money on that film, and I loved his work and respected him as a filmmaker. And part of the deal, right from day one, was that he would have the right to cut a European version of the film. He said he thought he knew what European audiences would prefer. He thought that he could get more into the head of a European audience. And so he had the right to change the film right from the beginning. So I never really could have any objections to it. In the end, and he and I have talked about this, he cut out too much of the humor. In fact, there were a couple of countries that looked at his version and they wanted to cut, you know, another minute and a half out of it. And they looked at our US version and just wound up cutting, you know, 15, 20 seconds out of it because the humor, they felt that the humor redeemed it. And so, you know, go figure. So I don't know whether Dario was right in his choices, but he had the right to do it. It was part of the deal from the very beginning. Right back.
These are kind of follow-ups to things you said already. In the movie Creepshow, when you weren't using the theater, how did you deal with the cockroaches? and also, was Stephen King heavy-handed at all with the writer-director relationship?
How'd you deal with roaches and Stephen King?
Steve is not heavy-handed in any way, ever. The only time that he ever even got involved in any discussions was he hated the way Vivica Lindfors played the role of, I forget the name, is it Bedelia? I forget what her character's name was. And he just really thought she was way too over the top. And Vivica was very forceful and wanted to smoke the cigar and be a bit nuts. And Steve always wanted her to just be a more spinstery type. So he and she got into some fights and she was able to beat him up. But no, Steve and I have always had a really terrific relationship. He's a great guy, very collaborative kind of guy. And so the only things he didn't like were Vivica's performance and the fact that I asked him to, you know, get a little Looney Tunes with Geordie. Because he also thought Geordie Verrill ought to be a really sad story and not played for so broadly. But, you know, it was never a problem. As far as the cockroaches, man, they literally had their own trailer. They did. We had to have this climate-controlled trailer for the cockroaches. We couldn't buy them. If you buy cockroaches, you can look online. If you buy them from a laboratory, they're like 50 cents a piece. But when you need, you know, 500,000 cockroaches, the price mounts up.
You should have filmed in New York.
Yeah, we should have. But, so we actually sent these entomologists,
Those bug guys.
down to Trinidad to get these cockroaches. And they came back with Rubbermaid barrels full of cockroaches, including those big, gigantic ones. But the cockroaches had their own trailers. But I'll tell you what, man, you dump out a big Rubbermaid trash bucket of cockroaches, you don't see one in 30 seconds. Within 30 seconds, they're inside something. They were in the computer, in the telephone, gone. You know they're all there, but you don't see them.
They probably still have family on location.